Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating shift in how we actually design our lives to, well, survive and thrive. We're going to follow the journey of a permaculture designer named Graham Farr. We'll be looking at his transformation from living a super brittle, vulnerable life back in 2012 to a highly flexible, resilient existence by 2026. If you've ever felt like you're carrying the weight of the whole world on just one single fragile paycheck, well, you're going to want to stick around because this is going to completely reframe how you think about stability. So, back in 2012, Graham basically thought that working these incredibly long hours meant he was strong. He was relying entirely on a single source of income. It was very much the old way. Imagine this single, rigid, concrete pillar just cracking under the immense pressure of a storm. He had zero buffer. So when the pressure got to be too much, he simply snapped. But jump ahead to 2026, and he shifted to a design for life. Instead of that cracking pillar, picture a really vibrant, flexible web. It sways when the wind blows, sure, but it holds incredibly firm because it's built on multiple, adaptable streams of support.
Let's get right into Section 1, Functional Redundancy. Moving from breaking to bending. So how exactly did he get from breaking to bending? Well, it comes down to a core permaculture concept known as functional redundancy. Think about it. Instead of relying on one massive heavy beam to hold up your entire roof, you use several interconnected supports. By 2026, Graham had built what we can call a web of services. We're talking drone aerial imagery, horticultural consulting, web design, and PC repair. Now, these aren't just random side hustles, okay? They're deeply interconnected threads that are literally holding up his financial stability.
But, as we all know, life isn't static. What happens when a sudden shock hits the system? Let's say a massive seasonal shift completely stalls out his horticultural consulting work, just cuts right through that thread. Now, in that old, rigid pillar model we talked about, that single income stream is severed, and the whole structure just comes crashing down. But watch what happens in this web model. As that horticultural thread gets cut and goes slack, the other threads in his web, the web design, the drone imagery, the PC repair, they immediately tighten up to hold the weight. If one stream slows down, the others actively engage to hold him up. The system bends, but it absolutely does not break. Which brings us to this really profound realization. As Graham himself puts it, resilience is the quiet force that lets you stay present even when everything is in motion. It's beautiful, right? Because he's no longer trying to be this unbreakable pillar. He has literally become a flexible forest. Even when things get chaotic, this interconnected design allows him to just stay entirely authentic and present. Moving on to Section 2, Community Roots. Because you don't have to be resilient alone. Seriously, you do not have to do all of this by yourself. Back in 2012, Graham was completely isolated. But he learned that acts of cooperation actually build mutual support. Picture Graham handing over a repaired PC to a neighbor, or chatting and helping a local business out with their social media. Every single time he does this, visualize these literal root lines extending outward, connecting him to those people in a real network of trust. His community becomes this ultimate root system, and they hold each other down when the winds of what we call the modern trap start blowing. But here's the catch. To actually help your community, you've got to have the internal capacity to do it. You have to build up your own batteries. Because, spoiler alert, you can't run on 0% indefinitely. By explicitly prioritizing rest, sleep, and recreation, Graham makes absolutely sure he has the stored energy ready to cope whenever chaos inevitably hits. Okay, let's dive into this. Section 3. The 3-2-1 Action Plan, also known as the Week 20 Framework. So how do we actually build this web in our own lives? Well, it starts with 3, the ethical filters. These are basically the foundation of your web. First up, earth care. Ask yourself, are you building biodiversity so the environment around you can actually recover? Second is people care. Are you setting firm boundaries to protect yourself against burnout? And third, fair shares. Are you actively sharing your surplus time and skills to weave a safety net right there within your local community? Next up is 2, the principal applications. Think of Zone 0 as your personal security. You need to identify a single point of failure in your life right now. Maybe you're relying entirely on one specific tool or just one big client. Your mission this week is to create a plan B for that exact thing. Once that's locked down, you move to Zone 1, which is social connectivity. Reach out to just one person in your network to strengthen a thread in your web. Because remember, highly connected systems are resilient systems. And finally, we reach 1, the immediate yield. When you face a sudden challenge this week, Instead of just instantly reacting with panic and snapping like that brittle old pillar, you just stop. You take 3 deep breaths right into the belly to calm your mind. That little split second of presence, that right there is your yield. That is you actively bending instead of breaking. Which brings us to our final section. Abundance is flexible, weathering any storm. The absolute biggest takeaway from Grimm's journey is that true abundance is flexible. We really have to stop trying to be these rigid, unbreakable statues. By choosing functional redundancy and leaning on community support, we make that vital shift from a fragile, isolated pillar into a highly connected, swaying web. And the best part? The tools to do this are right there in these permaculture principles. So the only question left to ask yourself is this: are you ready to grow deep roots? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.